Testing 1, 2. yes because they helped him with medical guidance. About his organization, Olay Torah for their ongoing support, and Bika Chaylim for their involvement as well. So I'm just keeping that here. They send it to Bob, huh? They, I can't believe it. He gave the wrong one. He was supposed to.
stock up. The Yartzeit, there's 4 boxes over there. And across from the tea station, there's 4 boxes. Give towards the students.
This is what they designated?
Yeah, because they all helped him. Helped him. This is the Mishna. And here's these papers.
Once a week.
For Shabbos.
Halacha for Shabbos. And starting. They're all important details, you know.
Can you can you hear me now? No, on the microphone. Do you hear me on the? Are you doing it on your phone or are you doing it on the computer? Okay, where's Ilan? Why is no one helping you?
I hear you.
Okay, you put it on. Okay, yeah, you got YouTube. You didn't do it yet? You didn't organize it? Okay. Okay, put it on. Text me if you have an issue. Text me if you have an issue. He can hear the whole conversation. You can do both. You can do both. Yes, you can. Okay, put it on. It's working right now. I'm talking right now. Tell me yes on the phone. It's good. Everything's good. You see, everything's working now. Bye. You're a mother. Yeah.
was saying Shalom? Good evening. It's hard to believe that a year has passed, and perhaps based on what we'll hear tonight, we will also appreciate the void as the first Yartzeit, sadly, has reached us. First Yartzeit of our dear beloved Rabbi Shmuel Benjamin, who was beloved to his students, beloved to the parents, beloved to all who knew him. We will start by learning Mishnayos, led by Rabbi Sholem Zirkin. We will learn the Asius of his name, Moshe Shmuel, but not the entire Prokim, so don't get excited. We're only going to learn one Mishnah per os. And in the booklets, you should have that Mishnayos. Follow along.
Let's read the Mishna with the basic translation. Shimon benoi Omer, Shimon the son of Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi said, Kol yomai gedalti ben hachachamim. All my days I grew up amongst the scholars. I didn't find anything better for my body than to be quiet, than to absorb. Learning is not the main thing. The main thing is action. Whoever speaks excessively, just leads to sin. Moshe kibel Torah miSinai Musar li Yeshua. Moshe received the Torah from Hashem by Har Sinai. He gave it over to Yeshua. Yeshua is Kanim. Yeshua gave it over to the elders. It was a Kanim the Nevi'im, and the elders gave it to the Nevi'im. The Nevi'im gave it over to the Anshe Knesses Agdola, which was the beginning of the second Beis Hamikdash. Heim Amru Shloisha Devarim. The Anshe Knesses Agdola said three things. Heavy Mesunim Badin. You should be cautious. You should take your time when you're judging. In judgment, Vamidu Talmidim Harbi, you should establish many students. Vasus Yogla Torah. You should make precautionary fences around the Torah, which is the precautionary things that the Chachamim introduced, primarily the Anshe Knesses Agdola. Vav is a Mishnah in Perek Yuma. The previous Mishnah discusses various people that are mentioned for good, that they did good things, and then it says Ve'elo Lignai. The following people were mentioned in not such a good light. Yad Shel Beis Garm, or a certain family that worked in the Beis HaMikdash, which made the lechem aponim. L'rotz l'lamed al masi lechem aponim. With a certain skill, the lechem aponim was made a special design, and to take it down from the oven without a breaking required a special trick, which they didn't want to tell anybody. Shel Beis Havtinas, the family Beis Havtinas, also of the Kohanim that worked in the Beis HaMikdash, l'rotz l'lamed al masi akteris. They knew a certain grass that was called Ma'ala Ashan that had the ability for the smoke of the Ketores to rise straight up, and they didn't want to share the secret with anyone. Hugras ben Levi Hoideya Perek Bashir, Le'ratz L'Lamed. Hugras ben Levi knew a certain way in harmonizing the songs. He didn't want to teach anybody. Ben Kamson Le'ratz L'Lamed Al Ma'aseh Aksav. Ben Kamson knew how to write Hashem's name by putting 4 quills between his fingers and writing the whole name at one time. but he didn't want to teach anybody else how to do it. On the previous ones that are mentioned in the previous Mishna did good things. Regarding them, we say that the memory of a tzaddik brings a blessing, and regarding these people, we say that the name of the wicked will be rotten, will be forgotten. Aleph, Arba Midas Bedes are 4 types of temperaments. How people work. Some people are quick to get angry, but they're quick to be appeased. So their loss is cancelled by the gain. That they get angry, but they quickly get appeased. Those people that it's hard for them to get angry, but once they get angry, it's hard for them to become appeased. So their gain, that they don't get angry, is overweighed by the loss that they can't get appeased. Is somebody who's hard for him to get angry, and even when he gets angry, it's easy for him to be appeased, as pious. Someone who is easy for him to get angry and hard for him to get appeased, he's a rasha. The Torah says that if there's a nest and there's a mother bird on top of eggs or young birds, you're not allowed to take the mother bird while she's on the children. So you're not allowed to take that mother bird, even if you need this bird in order to purify your mitzvah, which to purify you need to take 2 birds, and you're doing it for a mitzvah, you're still not allowed to violate the prohibition of taking away the mother bird. Now, not taking away the mother bird only would result in a small financial loss. Nevertheless, that's why it's called a mitzvah kala, easy. Mitzvah doesn't really incur such a big loss. Nevertheless, the Torah says that being careful with this, the person will have long life, will be good for him. So how much more so on harder mitzvahs that require much more effort and much more monetary involvement, that a person will get reward. Somebody whose deceased relative is laying in front of him, he wasn't buried yet, he's exempt from Shema, from davening and from tefillin. Those that are carrying the Aron, and those that they used to have a rotation of people carrying it, and some people took over the first group, then the second group took over the first group. Whether they're before the Aron and behind the Aron. So and those that are still necessary, still waiting their turn to carry the Aron, they're potter from saying Shema. Those that already carried the Aron, they're not needed anymore to carry the dead person for burial, so they're obligated to say Shema. But both of them, all of these groups are potter exempt from Shemona Esrei during that time. Shin Shiva Knei Menorah Ma'akvin Zeh. The 7 branches of the Menorah are ma'akev, they hold back one another. If you want to make the menorah in the Beis HaMikdash with only 6 branches, it's not going to be a kosher menorah. Shiva Neder Seh, Ma'akvin Zeh, the 7 lamps on top of the menorah, you had the lamps that contained the oils and the oil and the wick. So the 7 lamps withhold one another. Shtei parshas b'mezuzah Ma'akvin Zeh, the 2 parshas in the mezuzah Shema v'Hayim Shemoya hold back one another. If you only write one in the mezuzah, it's not a kosher mezuzah. Even one letter that's missing makes the whole mezuzah non-kosher. The 4 parshas of tefillin hold back one another. If you don't have all parshas, the tefillin are no good. And even one letter that's missing withholds the mitzvah. The 4 tzitzis and the 4 corners hold back one another because they're one mitzvah. They're 4 separate tzitzis, but one mitzvah. Rabbi Shmuel's opinion is that they're 4 separate mitzvahs and they don't hold back one another. The last letter, hey, Hillel v'Shamai kiblu mehem. Hillel and Shammai received the tradition of the Torah from Shmai and of Tali. And Hillel oimer havim talmid of shel Aaron. Hillel said the person should make himself from the disciples of Aaron, which means he should be oyev shalom, he should love peace, v'roidev shalom, he should pursue peace amongst others, oyev sabriyos. He should love creatures, everybody, even people that are called creatures, and mekarven la Torah, bring them close to the Torah.
Shmei Rabba Barach Olam Meis Baruch Ishtabach V'Spar Zem Esnaseh V'Sar Sol Shebechu Leilam Akol Chasar Asher Tavas Navasas Navama V'Imram Ayisrael V'Arban Aval Tamei Aval Kol Tamei Tamei Aval Kol Mandar Ayisadi Asadi V'Chol Sar Sar Yehilam Hashem Rabba Chinich Estarachim Merichem Ezan Merichem Bakana Kanishmaya V'Imram Yishlam Rabba Mushayim Taim Leno Kol Yisrael V'Imram Ayisha Shalom Rav Uyasha Shalom Leno Kol Yisrael V'Imram
As a Kohen, Shmuel enjoyed the practice of being the mitzvah of Birchas Kohenim. So me as a Kohen and Yosef as a Kohen and anybody who wants to join along. Vaydaber Adonai Moshe Lemer, Daber Alan Rabbanon Lemer, Keis Varachas Bnei Yisrael Amelohem, Yivarecha Adonai V'Yishmerecha, Yoer Adonai Ponu V'Lecha V'Chanecha, Yisa Adonai Ponu V'Lecha V'Yosem B'Chol Sholem, V'Som Shmi Al Bnei Yisrael V'Ani Avarachem. Since tzedakah is also a major part of the inyonim that we do, l'tevis haneshama, so there are 4 boxes for tzedakah, specific organizations that Shmuel was connected to, or Shmuel benefited from, and please give generously l'schus u'le'ila nishmas of Shmuel Moshe, Hakohen, then of Avigdor Chaim, L'zeichen Nishmosei. Shmuel's specialty is his existence was chinuch at the purest level, and he did that for 30 years in the Babich Yeshiva and then on Oltera. And one of his favorite practices as a mechanech, as a Lubavitcher mechanech, was the 12 psukim. So in lieu of saying the 12 bit, and that is when the Rebbe gave the psukim, he gave it in 2 parts. The Rebbe taught us the first 6 psukim was Rosh Chodesh Iyar, when the Rebbe started Shnas HaChinuch and Tovshin Lamed Vov. And at that Farbrengen, the Rebbe introduced 6 psukim, and he enumerated the psukim, Teirotziva, Shema Yisrael, and the first 6, 2 psukim from Chazal and 2 psukim from Tanya. And basically, the Rebbe gave a blanket statement at that Farbrengen that these are Yesoides B'Yahadus. These are fundamental aspects of Yiddishkeit, and therefore it's appropriate that every child should be aware of them and know them and memorize them. Teirot Tziva, Shema Yisrael, etc. Kikori V'Lecha, Kol Yisrael. That was the first 6 psukim. The Rebbe didn't give a big explanation then. At a later date, the Rebbe gave some more explanation, but at that, when he introduced the 6 psukim, it was introduced as basics in Yiddishkeit. Every child should know it. We should drill it into every child, instill it into every child. As mentioned, the Rebbe introduced Shnas HaChinuch. So as a result, Chassidim suggested to the Rebbe that there should also be a parade, that Lag Beimer, which is 2.5 weeks later, even though Lag Beimer was not on a Sunday. And the Rebbe agreed. And there was a Farbrengen, there was a parade to which the Rebbe came out and spoke. I think that was the first time the Rebbe went out with his gartel and Zaid to a parade, was that parade. And at that Sikha, the Rebbe spoke and introduced, in addition to the first 6, he introduced additional 6 psukim. The second set of psukim, the Rebbe took a completely different approach. And I have to tell you, I carry the Sikha in my pocket since it was published some 12 years ago. It was 11 years ago, it was published for the first time. They found this Sikha Mugya from the Rebbe. And it was an incredible Ashgocha Protis that the Rebbe was Magia Sikha, but somehow it didn't make it to print, which is it's probably once in history. By the Rebbe, anyone who was familiar, when the Rebbe was Magia Sikha, he expected to see it in print in a few short hours. And here, for some reason, he allowed it to disappear. And it was found 11 years ago, the Hashgocha Protis, without going into the background story. It came out at the exact time when Anash needed the content of that Sikha. In that Sikha, the Rebbe explains why is he introducing these 6 psukim. The Rebbe took a psychological approach, explaining each posuk with psychological reasons. And if you put it into context of the discussion amongst Anash at that time, it's mamish as if the Rebbe was responding to every single argument, stupid or not stupid, that came out of the mouths of Anash. We mamish saw and felt, if you paid attention, how the Rebbe is taking care of us. Vayovoi michtav me'Eliyahu, as Tanakh says. The Rebbe starts off, I'm not going to go through the whole thing, it's not that long, but still. The Rebbe starts off, a person opens his eyes in the morning and he's nervous. He's kind of, I'm going to use words which are not exactly what the Rebbe, my words are perhaps going to be a lot more vulgar than how the Rebbe spoke about it, but the teichen is correct. The person wakes up, he opens his eyes in the morning, and he thinks to himself, why am I waking up? I don't want to get out of bed. I have nothing to do in this world. The world is a frightening world. It's a scary world. It's dark. I don't want to be part of it. To which the Rebbe says, the response is, Breishis bara lekim es hashamayim v'soretz. You should remember this dark world that frightens you was created by the Eibishter. And if it's created by the Eibishter, it's not possible that it's a dark, frightening world. But it's a good world. And everything in it is good. And the Eibishter put you in this world as Hashamayim v'es Horetz, which is interesting. The Rebbe goes reverse. He said, he put you in Oretz, that you should do your shlichas, and as a result, you will be rewarded by the brachas min hashamayim. This is the first pasuk. Since you know such a wonderful thing, the Rebbe says, what follows is v'shenamtom levanecha. Teach it to whoever you can. Let them know there is such a wonderful world out there. And the Eibishter will give you brachas. So the Rebbe says a person thinks to himself, wait a minute. Yesterday, I went through this. My day passed. I failed. I failed my day. I failed myself. So what's the point to start again? Every day the same story. I think it's a beautiful world. I think everything is fine. And I end the day in the dark. I don't want to continue. To which the Rebbe says, that's why you teach him, lo yogaiti v'lo motzosi al taimin, lo yogati umotzosi al taimin, yogaiti umotzosi taimin. You have to understand, you cannot live a free blanket life without investing anything. A person appreciates something that he earned. If you will invest somewhat, a little yigir, the world will be of more value to you. And so the Rebbe goes on till he comes to the pasuk of Yismach, and he says, when you will meditate on these psukim, you will think about what these psukim mean. It will lead you to Yismach, Yisrael, Be'oisov, that the Eibishter and Yismach, Havaya, B'maisov, a simcha, a double simcha, that we rejoice with the Eibishter rejoices with us, and we have a life of simcha. Basically, the Rebbe is giving a prescription for happy life. How much money do people pay to therapists to have a half hour of happiness and joy? And here the Rebbe gives us a prescription for happy life. The Rebbe explained it. The Rebbe encouraged we should learn about it, look up more about it, and understand the meaning of these psukim. And the Rebbe guarantees us that if we will appreciate the psukim and learn them properly and internalize them properly, and of course say them properly, we will drill into ourselves positivity and a good, wonderful life. The 12 psukim are not just slogans, but it's a prescription for life. If I knew Shmuel, he was a happy camper. He was a very happy camper to the last minute. He was a happy, joyous chosid. He instilled joy into his Talmidim. His Talmidim enjoyed being by him. And this was the personality of Shmuel. And he had a big koch in the 12 psukim. I mean, just think about it. When a person realizes, V'zeh kol ha'odam v'tachlis briyoseh, as the Rebbe says in that sikha. V'zeh kol ha'odam, you should realize, the whole world that the Eibishter created was zeh kol ha'odam. It was all for you. That he has a shlichus for you to do in the world. It gives you value. It gives you meaning in life. It gives you everything. Life is worth living. And this is what Shmuel instilled in his Talmidim. So therefore, we would like to call upon a very dear friend, only because he's a good friend, I will call him the full name I call him, Rabbi Dr. David Sholem Pape. Dr. Pape has the privilege, distinction, 3 of his children learned by Rabbi Benjamin and 4 of his grandchildren. That's a pretty good record to go by, and he will share with us some of his thoughts and his impressions and reflections on Rabbi Benjamin.
Beautiful. When I think of Rabbi Benjamin, I think of Purim. He had a place underneath the overhang of the Viber shul, and he would stand there with a bucket, and thank you, and machzos a shekel, and people coming in would be able to do the mitzvah. Everything with Rabbi Benjamin was with a smile, with a laugh, with a word, a good word. There are some basic loves that a person has in life. We love Hashem. We love the Torah. We love the Rebbe. Rabbi Benjamin had all these loves, and they were open and on display. And there was one other. He loved the children. And he imbued that love in them with great patience and warmth. A friend just told me as we were walking in tonight that on Sukkot the family took a little trip, not too far. They couldn't go too far because they had to get back in time at the insistence of their young son, who didn't want to miss Rabbi Benjamin's sukkah party. It was so dear to them. My son Moshe told me that in the yeshiva where he teaches, where he taught, he had many difficult students, difficult children. The Anhala would davka give the most difficult children to Rabbi Benjamin because he knew how to handle them. He handled them with great love. He would draw them to himself and express his great confidence in them. Somebody told me once that they were talking about what makes a good teacher, and one of the qualities was the encouragement that a teacher gives. One person described how when getting an exam back from a teacher, the teacher stopped and looked at him in the eyes and said, "You know, you should keep on writing, you're very good at it." And because of that, he kept on writing. It's not me, by the way. And Rabbi Benjamin had the same quality. We have testimony from another child who said that the only thing that kept him going in yeshiva was the fact that he knew that Rabbi Benjamin believed in him. I'd like to share a story that has a lot to do with what teaching is all about. Someone asked me recently, what did you learn in your years of chinuch, teaching? I was stuck. I couldn't think of what I had learned. I guess I was too just busy teaching the whole time. And I thought about it, and I came back to this person, a friend and a colleague, after an hour or so. I said, I guess the most important thing in teaching is your student has to know that you care about him. That's, I think, the second thing you have to get across to a student is he has to know that he's very important. And why is he very important? Because he has a neshama. We know this from the Rebbe. The Rebbe told Rabbi Greenwald, who was going to speak, one of the first people who ventured out to speak to Jews who grew up in the Haredish environments of Yerushalayim. And he's asked the Rebbe, how should I speak to them? And the Rebbe said, don't talk. No, he was from there. He was from Yerushalayim. He was going to speak on the kibbutzim. And he asked the Rebbe, how should he speak? What should he say? He said, don't speak to them about tefillin, and don't speak to them about Shabbos or kashrus. Tell them they have a neshama, and everything else will fall into place. And that's what Rabbi Benjamin did. A child in Rabbi Benjamin's class came out knowing that there was an Eibishter and knowing that he had a neshama. And another ha'ira that we have from the Rebbe about teaching was given to Mr. George Rohr and Dr. Rudolph, who took care of the Rebbe when he had a stroke. And they established a minyan in the shul where they daven on the Upper East Side for Jews with no Jewish background. An instructional minyan. In the basement, like the shuls in Manhattan, the nicer shuls have a beautiful shul upstairs and a mincha shul downstairs. So the Rebbe had two objections to their idea. Number one, they don't belong downstairs. The people coming to your minyan should not feel that they belong in the basement. They're not second rate. And together with that, they have to know that there's no such thing as no Jewish background. That they have the most wonderful Jewish background. They're the children of Abraham and Yitzchak and Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and Leah. And there's a fourth principle that they have to know. And this too, Rabbi Benjamin communicated all the time, in every conversation. And that is that Hine Mashiach ba. With this good deed, with this happiness, with this laughter, we're going to bring Mashiach now. And then he would do a mitzvah with you. So the story I want to share came to mind was a story about doesn't take up much room in the Talmud, just I think one short paragraph about a person called Rabbi Preda. Rabbi Preda was a teacher, and he had a student, and this was in the days before dyslexia, the days before HD and HWD and HDD. He had a student who had a lot of trouble learning. He had to learn with him over and over and over and over again, and he still wouldn't get the idea. He still couldn't get the Mishna into his head. So he would learn with him 400 times. 400 times. Rabbi Katzman mentioned the idea of 10 spheres and 10 spheres, 4 worlds. It's 400. 400 times until he would get the idea. And one time, in the middle of the learning, there was a knock on the door, and there were 2 rabbis who showed up. And Rabbi Preda went to the door, and there was some quiet conversation between them. And the student heard that they needed Rabbi Preda for some important mitzvah. Perhaps it was Pidyon Shavuim. And he came back to learn, and he continued learning till he finished the 400 times. And at the end of the 400 times, the student still didn't get it. He said, "What's wrong? I learned with you 400 times. You usually catch on by that." He said, "Yeah, Rabbi, but since those 2 people came to the door, I kept on thinking, now they're going to come back, and now they're going to come back. And I couldn't concentrate." So Rabbi Preda sat down with him and learned another 400 times. At the end of the second 400 times, the student knew the Mishnah. Wow. That's superhuman. And the Gemara says that a voice was heard that said, "Rabbi Preda, Yasher Koyach, for what you did, you deserve a reward." It's like the Eibishter said, creating the whole world and the whole universe and everything is nothing compared to what you just did. You deserve a reward. What would you like? Would you like your life to be extended for 400 years? You've got it. Or would you like that your generation will be guaranteed a place in Gan Eden? Rabbi Preda said, "My generation comes first." And the Eibishter said, "Give him both." So what's going on here is something that the relationship between Rabbi Preda and the student was unbelievably pure. It brooked no distraction. And I would suggest that that's how Shmuel related to every student, whoever was there in front of him at that moment. He was there for him, And Rabbi Preda, what's the story telling us about Rabbi Preda? That he was tremendously unselfish. He's telling us more. He's telling us he didn't have to choose for himself Gan Eden, because the relationship that he had with the student was Gan Eden. And what we can take away from this is the four loves that I spoke about, and the devotion, the tremendous commitment of a teacher to a student that is so pure and so total that at the moment that they're together, the student is the center of the world, and he feels it, and at that moment, he and the teacher are out of time. And I think this is something we can all try to emulate, and that our relationship with Rabbi Benjamin will also be out of time. It should, Be'ezus Hashem, hasten the scholars of the Melech HaMashiach Tekef U'Miyad V'Hu Yigaleinu L'chaim.
Shikoyach Rabbi Pape for the warm words, inspiring words, and now you know why you should subscribe and read the Moshiach Times, because this is what will come through in the magazine. L'chaim, we spoke about what Shmuel liked. Shmuel liked to say L'chaim, so let's say L'chaim. Und mit singen achsidischen Nigen, es auf Farbrengen, Chidish Kislev, L'chaim. Podo v'shalom. Rabbi, Hayovi Modi, Podo v'shalom, Namje migra, Rabbi. Who is the new principal that instituted this? Yaru Elohim, Yaru Elohim, Shalach Yod, Bishleim Achim, Chilam B'risai, Chalk Machmois, Pivu Krol Dimba, Rakud Varom Mishem, Heim of Psiches, Hashlech, Al Hashem Yehovecha, Hu Yechalkelecha, Laiteleila, Meitlat Sandig, Yato Elikim Toiridem, Shachaz Yato V'yato Elokim Torei Dei V'shachar Anshe Damim 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 La Yertzum Yemeihem Anshe Damim Damim Amirma La Yertzum Yemeihem Vani Evdang Bhagvani 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 Evdang Bhagvani. As we move on, basically our speakers today will be and are parents of students of Talmidim, of Rabbi Benjamin. So we'd like to call upon another parent who is a dear, dear friend to the Benjamin family. He's there for them in all times of need. Unfortunately, when it was bad, and also in good, fully committed and helpful, for which the Benjamin family would like to express their strongest thanks and gratefulness, and look forward to share simchas together. We'd like to invite one of the Rabbonim in our community, Harav Reb Levi Yitzchok Garelik, much beloved and well known.
L'chaim. So to my dear friend, the Rabbi Dr. Pape, he thinks of Purim when it comes to Shmuel. I have another comical time when I think of him, that is Parsha Vayetze. Whenever I come to the story, Vayesef Lavan Eskol Anshe Hamokim Vayas Mishna. There's only one place in the Torah where it discusses of gathering all the people for a chasana. There's when I think of Reb Shmuel and Solange Yor and Dvorah, and especially how Lavan did that, it almost matches. Many people may not be aware that why does the Torah go out of its way by this wedding to make a whole point? As Kol Anshe Hamokim Vayas Mishna, they called all the people, because it says in several places that when Yaakov Avinu came to Lavan and he took off the stone, the water came out, and the water went for the whole 7 years and even later. So the whole place became very rich because of Yaakov. Especially Yaakov was there for 7 years. By the end of the 7 years, everybody was much, much richer than before Yaakov came. So Lavan wanted to keep Yaakov for another 7 years, whatever he could keep him. So he told all the people, he has a very simple eitzah. He will trick Yaakov into marrying Leah. And this way, Yaakov tomorrow will come and say he wants to stay another 7 years to have Rachel. And this way, we'll keep Yaakov here. Everybody said a very good idea. But how do you keep everybody from not telling the secret to Yaakov Avinu? So first of all, the men, what Lavan did, he went around to all the people in the town and said, if you want me to go through with this plan, you have to give me all your money as a collateral. So he stood there on the corner, and anybody who passed by, give me all your money, and we'll be able to make a big simcha here, a big chasana. Anyways, to make a long story short, and then whether he gave back the money or didn't, that's another story. We're not going to get into that. Aber lepoil, this is what it was. So the concept of chasana and the people who we're talking about tonight is definitely very much connected. But when we talk about Reb Shmuel himself, I myself had several Einiklach who learned by him. They all used to come back very, very happy from school, always want to go back to school, etc. And this is what the parsha talks about. Yartzeit Yaakov. Yaakov Avinu was a Yoshev Oiholim in Ahalei Teira, and the children enjoyed it. And the Rebbe makes it very clear that the pasuk, all based on Chassidus, that Vayentzi Yaakov Ber Shava Vayelech Harana is actually talking about the neshama, how the neshama, Vayentzi Yaakov, the neshama comes down from the place where the Kedusha, Vayelech Harana, it goes down to the Charein Af Shalolam, it goes down into the world to refine the world, and then eventually Vayivga Bamokim, and you get back to the Beis Hamikdash, Ashlishi. So definitely, Mirz Hashem, tonight, before we finish this event, with the Charana we had Baruch Hashem, and now we are ready for the Vayivga Bamokim. Since Reb Shmuel was very much into teaching children, he loved Pshuta Shel Mikra, and we used to discuss many times different things. Just one point which may be a little bit interesting, and that is, it says that when Yaakov Avinu came to Lavan, so he told me he wants to marry his daughter. So he said, Rachel bitcha haktana. Why does he say Rachel bitcha haktana? So everybody knows what Rashi says, because he knew that Lavan is a cheater. So he said Rachel, and then are you going to switch her for Leah? Bitcha. You're going to take someone from the street with the name Rachel, daughter. Haktana, the little one. Lepoil comes the next day. Yaakov comes to Lavan and says, why did you cheat me? So he said, very simple. It's not our minig. To take the younger one before the older one. Yeah, the question is, why didn't Yaakov Avinu take Lavan to court, to a Beis Din? And with Tatzaina. Okay? And the answer is because Yaakov Avinu knew that he's going to lose. He's going to lose by Lavan. As they tell, sometimes a straight person cannot deal with a crook. It doesn't work that way. What happened is, if you give a look in the pasuk, you will see what Yaakov Avinu tells Lavan and what Lavan tells Yaakov are two separate stories. Yaakov Avinu tells Lavan he wants Rachel bitcha ha-ktana. What does Lavan answer back? Leyasachem im kamenu loses ha-tzeira lifnei ha-bchira. He doesn't say ha-ktana lifnei ha-gdoila. Lavan says to Yaakov very simple. You said Rachel bitcha ha-ktana. What's meant ha-ktana? The kleine, the little one. Who's the little one? Who's the big one? Little is like this and big is like this, right? The pasuk said before that Eine Leah rakes and Rachel hoysei fastoyan. Leah was constantly crying because she was afraid she's going to end up by Esav, and Yaakov and Rachel, she was happy. So when they walked in the street, someone who's crying, how does he walk? Like this or like this? Someone who's crying is always bent down. Rachel was a fastoyan, so she was perfectly fine. So therefore, Lavan says, you want the ktana, right? Who's the ktana? Leah. You want the younger one. That's not going to work. So Yankov Avinu knew that there's no point in going in to an Torah with him because he's definitely going to win. But obviously this is all in Pshuta Shal Mikra. We have to remember something, that Lavan was our great-grandfather. Saf Kosov, we're all Einiklach of his. Okay, so we have to always find not the limit chus. When you start looking at things the way they are in Chassidus, Lavan is gor. One of the places that it discusses the concept of Lavan, white. Where do you find in the Sefer Torah the concept of white? The halach of Sefer Torah is you're not allowed to start writing a Sefer Torah from the top of the page. You have to leave a white space on top. And that is Lavan, which is the Levin Elyon, which is above the whole Seder Ishtalshlus. And as anybody who learns Chassidus knows, Kol Hagovoya Yeser, Nefel Amata Yeser. Anything which is tall above, when it falls down further. And that's why our world is the lowest of all the worlds, because the source of our world is in Atzmus Umahus, in the original Eibishter. So therefore, we have to take it into a positive way, that dafke because of Lavan's work, this is how Yaakov Avinu put up 12 Shvatim, and this is how the whole Klal Yisrael came out. And therefore, when we take it the Pshuta Shal Mikra, together with Chassidus, which this is really what Rav Shmuel did, he imbued in the kids the Chassidishkeit, which is in everything in Torah. The Rebbe will definitely help. They will be all reunited together with all the people that have to come right back. And Emir Hashem, let that be tonight.
Thank you very much, Rabbi Garelik. He gave us some new insight into Rabbonis, into Dinei Torah, whom to trust and not to trust. So being on the topic of halacha, we want to thank all the Torah for starting a project that's actually starting tonight on the Yartzeit. Tomorrow, all the children will be getting every week a halacha in Hilchas Shabbos to brush up on their knowledge of halacha. L'schus u'leila nishmas Reb Shmuel Moshe Reb Avigdor Chaim Hakohen. Since Yaakov, when he got married, the purpose was to set up 12 Shvatim. So there were a bunch of brothers circling the place. So we go from brother to brother. We'd like to invite Rabbi Yossi Garelik, the Mored Asra of Anshe Lubavitch, which became a very dynamic force in our community in terms of leadership and activism, which so coincides with the personalities of Rabbi Benjamin and Tavod Chaim Tevin, his Rebbetzin, Dvorah, who we all know what she does, very active. Nobody had to initiate this or put her in a position. She created this position, and her position is to make people happy, to help people get married. So, Saimi de Pashas HaShavua, the Chasana from Yankiv, and the Simcha of Simchas Chosn L'Kala, the activism. It's only right that we hear from Rabbi Yossi Garelik a power between the activism in our neighborhood and also a parent of students from Rabbi Benjamin.
The last Mishna that we learned for Reb Shmuel, on the name Shmuel Moshe, it says, Hillel Eimer, Hevei mi Talmidov shel Aaron. Hillel says you should be from the Talmidim of Aaron. Ehev Sholem. should love Shalom, Redef Shalom, you should pursue Shalom, Oyeves Abrius, Umekarvan Latera. You should love every creature and bring them closer to Torah. The Yesod of Yiddishkeit is Avas Yisrael. The famous Gemara where the guy comes over to Hillel and asks him, he wants to learn the whole Torah standing on one foot. Says Hillel, Madesani loch el chaver chol esavid, Avas Yisrael. The Yesod of ganz Yiddishkeit is to love another Yid. The rest, the whole rest of the Torah is Pirushahu, is a side factor. Fragt sich a Shaila, how can I love every Yid? Maybe there's another Yid that is not such a nice guy. Maybe I shouldn't love him. That's a misnagdische Shaila. If you learn Chassidus, you know that there's no such question. Why? If you look at the world with your physical eyes, then there is division. There's one Yid, there's another Yid, there's one person, another person, one Bria, another Bria. When you learn Chassidus and you understand that all there is one Eibishter, then there's no division. You can't say one Yid, another Yid. It's all der Eibishter. They all have the same neshama. They all nefesh elikis, achilek elikam imal mamish. When one Yid loves another Yid, he's loving the Eibishter. And if you love the Eibishter, all Yidden are equal. You love yourself. In order to reach that understanding, darf man stehen a tefach echer. You have to see the world not with physical eyes, but with spiritual eyes. It's true that Reb Shmuel was the teacher of my kids, but I knew Reb Shmuel for a very long time, probably one of the longest here. I know him for more than about 40 years. We were good friends in Australia. He was a teenager, an Australian kid, a teenager. When all his friends used to go have a good time, like teenagers do, he used to come to yeshiva and learn Chassidus. Reb Shmuel is a real self-made man. He, mamish by himself, he pushed himself. He was actually naturally attracted to Chassidus. He used to come to yeshiva and learn. Whenever he had an extra second, he was a teenager. Everybody else was running around having a good time. There was once, in the summer, in the winter, gedenk nicht, and all his friends went on vacation. He went to Eretz Yisrael. I don't know if you know, but, and I'm saying this l'shvach. He was very attracted to Caroline. A stickel Caroliner. You know that? He was naturally attracted zu dem Brennen, dem Davenen, Liebschaft, die Warmkeit von Jüdischkeit. Bei ihm, die Liebschaft, der Avas Hashem, Avas HaTeure, und Hoiker Avas Yisrael, mit der Warmkeit von Jüdischkeit, it was natural to him. Came over and, Caroline. He was in Caroline and then came back. He went on a Spitz Chabad. And this is how he led his whole life. He went a emes a chosid that did not look at the world with physical eyes. He looked at the world with chassidische eyes, with spiritual eyes, and had a natural love for Avas Hashem, Avas HaTeire, and Vehoiker, Avas Yisrael, which was very, very obvious in the way he taught kleine Kinderlach. Hat in sie reingelegt a Liebschaft zu Yiddishkeit. And I'm saying in Yiddish because he used to like to talk in Yiddish. Used to like to reinschmuggeln in Yiddish. Hat verstanden, also mir will reingeben, if you want a Kind zu haben a Warmkeit zu Yiddishkeit, man darf sagen auf Yiddish. In any case, the Rebbe soll helfen, that we should continue in his ways. Ve'ikar, the Kinder. I want to tell his kids that Kemuven, it's very painful, extremely painful. But you can still give him a lot of nachas. When you do, down here in this world, what you know that he wanted you to do, he's sitting in Gan Eden and he's smiling down at you, at his kids, and Kemuven, his Choshev Rebetzin, that together they built an amazing organization, was bringt Simche zu Yidden, a tremendous amount of Simche, so the Eibishter they benchen that they should make many, many Simches, Bekorv Mamesh, or sein Vakitze Veranu Sheikh Neofer, Vehu Beseichom Bekorv Mamesh.
Yashikayach Rabbi Garelik, and Yashikayach for your community, for the Askonas, and together with Dvorah, in her Askonas, you will take this community to greatest heights. We'd like to invite Rabbi Moshe Pape to communicate a message from the grandmother, the mother of Rabbi Benjamin.
Before I start, I just want to say I know Mrs. Benjamin in Australia is watching now, and so I want to give her a bracha that she should have arichas yamim v'shanim toivus, and she should have lots of nachas from her einiklach. Should be only many, many simchas. She should be able to come in for many happy occasions, and she should know only good things, and we should soon be all reunited with the coming of Mashiach Tzidkenu. Take it from Yad Mamash. She prepared these few words to share here now with everyone. I'll try my best. This being the first Yartzeit for my beautiful son Shmuel, I write this message with a very broken heart and also a very thankful heart. I have been blessed and privileged to be Shmuel's mother for 57 wonderful years, and as his mother, my love for him is still so deep. I will miss and treasure him forever. I have good days and sad days, but mainly on the good days,
some of my memories turn to his journey in life. I think of his growing up years with his brothers, Jonathan and Adam. He had an amazing relationship with my late father, his grandfather, Pape Ben. Shmuel used to come home every year from New York to see him, and they spent many hours discussing Torah and their love of cricket. I often saw them watching cricket on TV and studying at the same time. I also think of his journey of becoming a rabbi and for his love for teaching. I remember one year a mother from his class put a photo of her son and Shmuel on Facebook. I usually don't put anything on Facebook, but I couldn't resist. I wrote about the photo being of her son and my son. I got about 50 likes. I have to admit that it did put a big smile on my face. I have left the best for last. I was truly blessed when Shmuel met the love of his life, Devorah, and I became a grandmother to my much-loved Mushki and Yosef. Devorah, Mushki, and Yosef, we are all thinking of you and love you very much. We all just overcame the saddest year, but now we can hopefully move forward to celebrate many simchas in our family, probably sooner rather than later. I wish to take this opportunity to thank you all for your most wonderful tributes for our much-loved Shmuel. I am sure wherever he is right now, he would definitely be laughing and also have a big smile on his face.
Amen to all the brachas, and let's take a have simchas very, very soon. Let's sing a niggin, and then we'll hear a little more. Ay, 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 Hi, mama. Today, ya mama, mama, Hi da 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 ma 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 da 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 ma da 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 ma ma la 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 ma da da da. Hi da 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 ma 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 ye na 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 na. Hi da 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 da. Ye na 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 ma da 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 da. Ay na 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 ma da 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 ma ye na na ma ye na na ma ye na na no. Ye na na ma ye na 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 ye na 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 ye da 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 da. Ay na 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 ma da 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 ma ye na na ma ye na 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 da 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 ma ye na 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 hey ma la 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 na 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 ma da da na da ma 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 Chaim. Like to call upon my very dear and beloved nephew, just for lack of another term, Yosef Benjamin, to speak, share his feelings at this moment.
I'd like to start off by saying thank you on behalf of my mother, my sister, and myself. Thank you for everybody for coming to this Farbrengen for my father, Shmuel Moshe Benevik Derchaim Hakohen. I'd also like to thank Divi Baumgarten, Moshe Pape, and Veli Karp for all they did for tonight. My father taught me what a mechanech is supposed to be. He would always say that it starts before he gets into the class. I heard my father say many times, your Talmidim will know what's important for you. And they're always looking at you. He would always bring an example where my father, for people that know, he had to use his voice a lot. So he always had a scarf to protect his voice. And he would say, my Talmidim will put on a scarf and say, I'm Rebbe, because that's what they saw that was important to Rebbe. My father always treated, if you know, he treated every person from the janitor to Rabbi Lustig the same. He'd always be smiling, always saying good morning, always making sure that somebody else felt good. If you ever see anybody that remembers my father, he was always smiling. He would always go, because he would walk up 5 flights of stairs. I think it's because my father wanted to see Talmidim without taking the elevator. I heard recently of a parent came over to me to tell me that my father came into his class. This happened last year. Unfortunately, the elevator in Olater is a lot of times broken, for people that know. And so my father couldn't go to his Prune classroom. There was this Talmud who was going through a hard time, and he came home to say, Ta, I'm so excited. Today was an amazing day. Rabbi Benjamin came and said, ask me how I'm doing. My father has many, many stories like this where he would go talk to boys and be happy. Another time, my father would say quite often that he heard from another parent that spoke to him that he had a Talmud who was not his Talmud. And this Talmud would all day talking about Moshe Belsky and my Rabbi Benjamin. So he asked the 6, 7-year-old kid, this parent asked this kid, why is it you're always talking about Rabbi Benjamin and Moshe Belsky, Havasham? And the kid says, because these are the only 2 people that smile at me and say good morning to me. On the way up the 5 flights of stairs, my father would always stop off in the kitchen, which he would smile and say good morning to the staff, to pick up bread, to pick up Mazainis bread and pick up regular bread. And this was for many years. Eventually, I asked him one time why he did this. My father said because there could be one time there's one parent who's running late, and one of my Talmidim will be hungry, and that will affect their learning. So I'm going to go and get bread for that kid. My father many times taught me that when you're in a classroom, not every kid understands the difference. You can't treat Aleph the same as Lamed. You can't treat Mendel as Zalman. Every kid you have to treat differently. And he'd bring an example where he one time had to learn with a certain kid. And he would play ball with this kid. This kid had ADHD, couldn't sit for very long, like we all understand. And this kid, so my father would play ball with him for a few minutes, and then he'd run and learn how to read. Then he would go back to ball and read and back and forth. If Chas v'Shalom, my father, for whatever reason, had to discipline a kid, which my father did not like to do, I remember many times for his Talmidim, you heard of the tshuva chair, where at recess, he would have a chair outside. You're not getting your punishment. Just, you have to sit to remember for a few minutes, just to remember what you are. He would say a lot, you're having Avos Yisrael, Avos Yishmael. I remember one time my father having to discipline a kid, and I was like, I don't remember my father disciplining that much, generally. For the next 2-3 years, till I went to Melbourne, every time he saw me, he would tell your father that I'm doing good in class. Tell him that I'm behaving, I'm having Avos Yisrael, I'm doing all these things. Baruch Hashem, this kid today is in Zal. He's a big masmid. My father also taught me that you could be in chinuch for 30 years and you always have to grow. Rabbi Rosenfeld, who my father helped replace him when he was not doing well, it's a real tzaddik. I know I shouldn't shout him, but I do want to. For 3 years, he left my father's classroom exactly how he was. So just when he walks in, he feels comfortable. Rosenberg, sorry. My father would say that he wants to learn from Rabbi Rosenberg, that Rabbi Rosenberg was very, very organized. My father had carbon clients everywhere. He had things, but he knew how to do it. He had everything, printed out. And he says, when I go back to class, I'm going to be like him. The last time my father taught, L'Torah Pruane, Rabbi Rosenberg turned to my father and tell him, teach the difference between an ayin and a tzaddik. My father took Yitzhak Pape, Mendel, sorry, should have got beforehand. Mendel Pape, and he put him on his back, and he walked around a kaffa around the classroom, even though it was hard. And he says the difference between an ayin and a tzaddik is a tzaddik has a tzaddik behind his back, and this is a tzaddik. Today, I, Baruch Hashem, work in Chinuch for the last 5 years. I've taught in classes. I work with kids. I try to follow my father's footsteps. I always say good morning. I'm always involved with other people, not only my class, but in all the people. I was at the Kinnis HaShluchim this past week. My friend invited me, and they gave out something. And I saw another mechanech who works in Darche, and I handed it to him. I said, you should come bring this chura to your class, and you should tell them how you were inspired by the kinnis and everything you do. I said, because that's what my father did. He would find it, he would go and think about his talmidim. I'd like to end off with saying we all work in different fields. We all do different things. We can all smile. We can all make sure somebody else that we see feel good. If you could say good morning to the security guard or to your secretary. You can make people feel that they're not invisible. I'd also like to read, when my father was sick, his class wrote up something for him, and each Talmud wrote. I think some of these really explain. One of his Talmidim says, he's my best Rebbe in the world. He always knows which questions to ask when boys are not getting along. He makes raffles. Another boy says he makes raffles. He gives out Rebbe dollars. I like when he says Parsha. He's very interesting. We're talking about Sukkot. Another kid was saying he teaches me very nicely things, and I really appreciate him. I really like seeing him in the Sukkah. I like to end off with one of his Talmidim said an interesting thing. He tells great stories. He taught me how to read. He's strict, but makes raffles and prizes out. This is what a kid remembers, is that you were tough, yes. You were hard, yes. But you were fair. Thank you.
Yes, if I can say, you practice what you preach on a personal level. I just thank you for every time you see me, you give me a hug. It's for real. Makes me feel good. I hope it makes you feel good too. And we hope that very shortly we will celebrate Simchas together. They say behind every man there's a great woman. And behind a great woman is even a greater man. Dvera, in her tremendous work, which is to bring Simcha, had a powerful man behind her. Shmuel, as mentioned before, every Purim, he would stand there with his machzah shekel. He would go around and raise money just to be there for his wife. I know from firsthand how much they gave up in terms of a family for the wonderful activities of Chevre Simchas, Chosim Bekala, and the tremendous amount of work. We all see how Dvorah sits there every Friday at least, and many more days whenever it's busy here in the neighborhood, whether it's in front of Empire Kosher or it's on Kingston Avenue near the Flowers or near Gumbo's. She's always there to reach out. She could never do this. Trust me, she could never do this without Shmuel. It was Shmuel being there forever, as enabling her to be able to do this great work. And he was an equal partner, both in starting the organization, running the organization, and working for the organization. It is a classic askones of the highest order. Therefore, it would be very appropriate to invite one of the great askonim in the world of Shlichus, the director of JLI, a tremendous askne and mashpia here in the neighborhood, who also has the distinction that 6 out of the 7 boys learned by Rabbi Benjamin. Let us hear from Rabbi Ephraim Mintz.
Shekoyach, really so much has been said tonight. L'chaim, l'chaim. It was during one of the very difficult times in Russia when there was a gzeira from the government against chinuch. And this particular gzeira was very, very difficult because it wasn't only against the Jewish community, it wasn't only challenging the chinuch of Achenu Bnei and Bnei Yisrael, it was against all religious forms of education, which made it even more difficult for the Jewish community to overcome this challenge. And as often would happen, the Gdolei Yisrael came together from alle Kreisen, Reb Chaim Brisker, Reb Chaim Moiser from Vilna, the Rabbi Rashab, Reb Itchel Aponovitcher. There were many, many Rabbonim and Rosh Yeshivas and Gdolei Yisrael that came together to discuss how do we deal with this challenge. And the Rabbonim decided, after deliberations for many hours, they decided that we need to convey to the Russian government and the Minister of Education that when it comes to chinuch in the Jewish community, it's not just the regular education the way it is in other communities. Learning Torah, the chinuch that we provide our children, is part of the fabric, part of the DNA of who we are as a people. Ki heim chayenu va'orech yomeinu. And they decided they were going to take a piece from the Siddur that we daven every day, and they were going to translate it into a very good Russian, and they were going to send a delegate, a representative of the Jewish community, to read it to the Minister of Education, to convey this. You want to know who we are? Chinuch is not just something we do from a certain age to a certain age. It's negeya b'nafshenu hadavar. So they decided to choose the tefillah of ahavas olam ahavtonu. We say it every day in davening. One of just on that part of in the Siddur, there's so much chassidus. The Alter Rebbe L'Kutei Torah. We say in b'libeinu bina lahavin ulahaske lilmoid ulalamed lishmoid v'lases ulakayim. They translated that piece of davening in a very, very prolific Russian. Then they found a representative of the community and they brought it back, the translation to all the Rabbonim, and the Rabbonim, they tweaked it and everyone commented. And they finally, after many hours, this Shliach Tzibur, the delegate that was going to read it to the minister, stood before the Rabbonim and Rosh Yeshivas, and he read it in Russian, B'loshon Tzacho Brura, so they can hear what he will be reading to the Russian ministers. And as they sent him off on his shlichus, one of the Rabbonim stood up and said, Rabbi Isai, ich will sagen, I want to say something. Rabbi Isai, he turned to the Mechanchim, the Rabbonim, and the Rosh Yeshivas, and he said, if we in our schools, in our shuls, in our communities would say this tefillah every day, mit hazah gishmak, the way it sounds now, it's pasha kafta v'ferach, it's hazah gishmak to listen to this tefillah, the way it's written, the way it's given over, mit hazah bren, hazah chayis. If we would say it every day like this, Volt king Gzeira nish given. It wouldn't be a Gzeira in the first place. Because we daven the way we daven, so Nebach, we have to deal with Gzeira. Rabbi Isai, was just mentioned, and we all know that in the DNA of Chassidim, is shlichus, hafotzes hamayonis, caring for others. But we also know that equally, if not more important, is the chayes, the simcha of our own children. And as Rabbi Katzman mentioned, I stand here before as an individual parent among many, many hundreds who owe a personal, profound hakoras hatoiv to Harav Benjamin. I was zoche to have 6 of my children, 6 of our sons learned by him, and they were beneficiaries of his ahava, as we heard tonight, speaker after speaker, of the vadimkeit, of the bren, of the hiskashrus, of the love that Rabbi Benjamin was known for, not only in the classroom, but in the street, when you saw him on Kingston Avenue, when you saw him with Apushka, when you saw him b'chol esu b'chol shah. That bren, that vadimkeit that he imparted and inculcated in the children is something that no money can buy, no book, no education course. That is the bren that he gave over to every single one of his talmidim. So I owe Pashat a personal, eternal hakoras hatoiv, as I'm sure hundreds, many, many hundreds of parents and families and homes, and not only here, but today many of them live all over the world, and they carry with them that vadimkai, that warmth, that ava that he inculcated in his talmidim. It was in the 1940s that in Chicago there was it was difficult times for the Fruma Kehillah, and there were a few Talmud Torahs in Chicago. One Frum Talmud Torah, there was a Talmud Torah that was part of the conservative temple, and the Frum Talmud Torah was having a very difficult time, and they decided that there's no point in having 2 Talmud Torahs. They went into meetings. They were going to merge the 2 Talmud Torahs together. It made sense. Why have 2 buildings? Why pay so many salaries, administration? It didn't make sense. It fiscally made perfect sense to bring them together. And there was a Yid, his name was Rabbi Levitansky, the father of the noted Shliach and Chassid and Rav Rabbi Avrem Levitansky from Los Angeles, Olav Shalom. He wrote into the Frierdiker Rebbe in the tough shins, what should we do? So the Frierdiker Rebbe answered the following. He said, was is neugeya is nicht was man lernt, nor wer es lernt sei. What matters most is not what they're learning. It's the same books, it's the same Sfarim, it's the same Aleph Beis, the same Chumash. What matters is not what they learn, but who teaches them. What our kids and us as adults, what matters to us is not so much today, can we learn in Torah? The Torah it never in history was Torah available and accessible as it is today. But what's Neigeya is not what we're learning, but who personifies, who is the figure that delivers the Torah to us. And Rabbi Benjamin, I'm sure, as we and every parent wanted their children to spend a year in the presence of this burning flame of Varimkeit, of Rebbe, of Chassidus, of Avos Yisrael and Avos Hashem. We're living now in the shadow with the Avos and the Imohos, as was mentioned several times. Concerning Yitzchak Avinu and his relationship with his challenging son Esav. The Torah tells us, we're coming from the parasha, the Torah says, Vayehav Yitzchak es Esav ki tzayid befiv. And the Ramban says a very puzzling thing on this pasuk. The Ramban says that Yitzchak loved Esav ki tzayid befiv because he hunted and he fed his father. Says the Ramban that every single day, Yis'ave Yitzchak lechol basar. Every day, Yitzchak Avinu hat lieb gehabt essen Fleisch. And therefore, he had a good relationship with his son. The Achronim wonder, what's the Ramban? The Yitzchak Avinu, the gegessen Fleisch jeden Tag? So I'm bodne Zach. So I saw one of the Achronim that explains the Ramban, a moire dike Wort. He says, Yitzchak Avinu knew his son very well. He knew he had Esav, he knew he had a son, a character, a chevraman. So what did he do? He says he knew that there's one thing that Esav does well. There's one area that Esav excels. There's one area that Esav shines. He's a hunter, and he's a good hunter. Und jeder Tag chapt er Behemoths, chapt er Fleisch. So what did Yitzchak Avinu do as an incredible father, parent, educator? He says, Hishpil ubizo es atzmoi, lechol basar bechol yoim v'yoim. Yitzchak Avinu was mashpil himself. He belittled himself in order to love meat, to allow for his son to be mekayim the mitzvah of kibud av v'em. He found something that his son specializes in, and it's the nidert. He allowed his son to shine as Esav Harasha, a hunter. He changed his whole life to eat meat every day to allow his son to shine. We heard earlier from Yosef and others how he found he was mahalach. Reb Shmuel was mahalach kneged ruchoy shal kol echad ve'echad. He allowed every single child to shine. He gave every child. This one struggled in reading, so he made him a monitor. This one struggled. He allowed every child to be a mitzuyin. And this is one of the biggest challenges and successes in chinuch. You know, they say that in recent modern history, one of the two of the giants in the secular Zionist world, who unfortunately grew up in fine fruma homes, but unfortunately both of them yatzu l'tar b'sara. They both became giants, unfortunately, in the Zionist world, in the secular Zionist world. One was Ginsburg, who became known by his pen name Echad Ha'am, and one was Chaim Nachman Bialik. One became the greatest Zionist composer and singer in modern Jewish history, and one became a great thinker and philosopher. That Zeltman, as I actually heard this week, that Rav Rosh from Eretz Yisrael was here. He came to New York, to the Kinnus, and we sat with him. He shared this word. He said that Chaim Nachman Bialik, the famous composer and singer, his parents sent him to learn in Volozhin. In Volozhin, Bal Yiro, Bal Yimotze, Anigen. You couldn't find Anigen in Volozhin. Davening lasted at most for 30 minutes. Never sang Anigen during davening. Zmirois, he said, in Volozhin sagt man Zmirois Yoimeiru, nicht Yoshiru. Man sagt Zmirois, man sagt nicht Zmirois. So Nebach, Chaim Nachman Bialik, he's in Volozhin. There was not a sound of music. He went to look elsewhere, and he left Nebach, Yotzel L'tar B'Sra, and he became the great Chaim Nachman Bialik. Unfortunately, he left Yotzel L'tar B'Sra, but he became a great composer. He found his calling elsewhere out of Volozhin. Echad Ha'am, Ginsburg, who by the way was the nephew of the Rebbe Rashab through marriage. He married Ashnerson, and the Rebbe Rashab, had a shaykhus with him. He was a great thinker, a great philosopher, a great intellectual. He was born in Achsidish, near in Square. It's a Square Cheder, mit gegessen Hering, ein bisschen gelernt, gesungen Nigunim, didn't speak to him. He waited around, the Malamed came in, sang Anigen, learned the Rashi, and weitergefahren. He didn't speak to him. So he was looking for intellectual engagement to inspire him, and Nebach, he didn't find it, so he gang suchen, gang passion sich in fremde Erter, and he ended up going to university, and he became the great thinker outside, unfortunately. Und die Welt sagt, als Bialik wird gegangen in Square, und Echad Ha'am wird gegangen in Volozhin, wird es beide gewinnt Doyle Yisrael. The godless of Chinuch is that when you see a child like Echad Ha'am, and you see a Bialik, not to say conform and stay in the box, to find a way to relate to Echad Ha'am and relate with Bialik, and to cater to every child Ba'asher Husham, every child to be a Mitzuyin, that can only happen with Havarimkeit, with Ava, with care, with incredible dedication that Rabbi Benjamin was known for. And the Eibishter himself, the Al Shach HaKodesh, says, the Al Shach HaKodesh wrote a Sefer on Tehillim, it's called the Roimim Maskel. He says, he says, why did the Eibishter make so many mitzvahs? Rotza HaKodesh Baruch Hu L'Zakes Es Yisrael. You know why he made so many mitzvahs? If there were only 10 mitzvahs, how many people in this room get excited about these 10 Aseres HaDibris? So Eibishter B'chazdoi HaGodli, he made 613 mitzvahs. So every Yid should find a mitzvah, the Beihav is Zohar Tfei. Every Yid should find a mitzvah, like this one's excited about Tefillin, this one about the mezuzah, this one about shiluach hakan, this one about the kashrus. Everyone could find one but one mitzvah the behavizort fei that we love with a passion, with an excitement. And this is the chinuch that he provided, and if I can say here, not only to the children that were in his class, but to their families, because by extension, when a kid comes home with that varmkeit and that bren, it affects the family, the Shabbos table. He runs to yeshiva, and he comes back with a smile, and that's what he did. And that impact is felt throughout. Just to conclude, we all know the nevuah of Yecheskel about the Atzomis HaYeveshes. That Yecheskel Hanovi was told by the Eibishter to revive, to resuscitate the dry bones, which were the lifeless dry bones. But there's a fascinating pasuk in the nevuah of the Atzomis HaYeveshes, a puzzling pasuk. Before the Eibishter tells Yecheskel Hanovi to revive, to resuscitate the Atzomis HaYeveshes, the Eibishter turns to Yecheskel Hanovi and he asks him a question. Vayomer Elai, Hatichyena ha'atzomis ha'ela. Yecheskel Hanovi, what do you think? He asked the Eibishter, asks him a question. You think these dry bones will ever come back to life? And only then did the Eibishter tell him to go be mechaya. These are some say vicious. Frag dich Sam Sofer in his drushes. A shaila, a klotz kasha. Why did the Eibishter ask Yecheskel Hanovi if the bones could ever come back alive? And he says, I'm moide de kavort. He says, because in order for a Novi to be mechaya at Atzomis HaYeveshes, he first has to believe in these Atzomis HaYeveshes that they could come back to life. So the Eibishter asks him, Zog mi Yecheskel Hanovi, do you believe Hatchayenu Atzomis HaEla? If you believe, then it will happen. If you don't believe, then it will never happen. If you don't believe in your Talmidim, if you don't believe in Atzomis HaYeveshes that they will come back to life, they will not come back to life. But if you do believe it, they will. Rabbi said we had in our midst a living example of a chassid, a mechanech, who believed in Tchayeno ha'atzomos ha'yeveshes. He believed in the Talmidim. He believed in every one of them. He had Tchayeno, he was mechayed his neshamis, and by extension their families. Yartzeit, that just as was said tonight time and again, that both he and Yibod L'chaim Tovim, his Rebbetzin, were zoicha to bring koil sosim v'koil simcha to so many families from here and from around the world that have chasanas here. Mi'ubi zoicha, right now his name is Reb Shmuel Moshe, Shom, gefinzach dorten, but his children, Mushka, Yosef, and Devoyer, is miyad. Miyad, we should be zoicha, that fun dorten, fum shom, zela kumin da, together with all our loved ones, with the Rebbe Bereishenu B'Karav Mamish.
A hearty Ashkoyach, Rabbi Mintz. Now I know where you got it from. You had 6 children by Rabbi Benjamin. Talking about the passion of chinuch, Rabbi Benjamin was a melamed. That was his parnosa. That was his job. So I'd be remiss if we don't pay attention also that chinuch was part of his being. I remember years ago when Rabbi Engel, those who remember, Rabbi Engel had a minyan in 770, a children's minyan. And first it started, Rabbi Benjamin would come there to daven for his child, for Yosef. But then Rabbi Engel left, and Rabbi Benjamin took over. And we worked together, sort of. But he was, of course, the mechanech. So I just want to tell Yosef also, I want you to know, in his chinuch, his love to the children, he loved you. He loved his own child. Because I remember he had to make a change. He moved from 770 to start davening in Beis Levi Yitzchak. Because he felt that for Yosef, Beis Levi Yitzchak was a better situation for his davening. And there he established a children's minyan, which he ran as long as he could. So let's end on a note of the messages we heard today, Ave, Chinuch, Teire. This is, we can probably, the 12 Psukim, the ganze Metzias of Shmuel. These were details in one thing, and that was the Rebbe. His iskashres was as much as can be. He gave his life to do whatever he can, to do what the Rebbe wants, bring nachas to the Rebbe, and in every which way, personally and through his Talmidim. There's a lot that we heard today we can learn from, and all we can say is, V'yikitzu v'ranonu sheikh ne'ofer, as Rabbi Mintz so appropriately said, miyad, we should be zeiche to the Yekitzu v'ranonu, we should be zeiche to meet together with the Rebbe, with this galus of Moshiach, and we will really dance away b'simcha uvtuv levov. We're going to sit together, Farbrengen, Mamshech Zayin Farbrengen, open mic. The official program, the ceremonial program is over. Powerful speech.
Do you have enough mashka or not? Jason, do you think you have enough mashka? Should go get more.